The Russian command cannot stop the Ukrainian liberation forces from advancing at this stage, so the main task is to slow them down. In essence, all these troop movements and resource transfers by the Russian armed forces aren't intended for a counterattack or creating an impervious defense. There's a different goal in mind. Russia does not have enough forces and means, as we can see, for a confident defense, but it has human resources, which can be used to fill trenches, strongholds, to stuff 3 to 4 recruits or elite scouts without experience into each hole, and thus saturate each location with meat. It takes time to knock the meat out of their positions. Even watering their positions with cluster munitions is an additional waste of time. And thus winning it, the enemy command is in a state of permanent expectation of unfavorable weather conditions for the Ukrainian offensive. According to the occupation command, rains and frosts will stop the Ukrainian offensive. I have no doubt that the AFU will reach the town of Tokmak in the near future. But the question is different: what will the occupants do? After all, for them to stay in Tokmak is a voluntary suicide, they are not tenants there. It is more logical to flee, but the Russian command may give them a completely different order. They can leave a garrison of several thousand in Tokmak to slow down the AFU. That is, to deliberately fill the town with meat, which will leave the town only in the format of cargo 200, 300 or 400. I'll tell you what that means later. It will take time to liberate Tokmak. This includes encircling the city, cutting off logistical routes and getting to the southern sector. Russian commanders are dragging out the war without regard for casualties, but there is a nuance. The tactic of plugging holes with meat may have a temporary effect, but it does not address the main problem for the occupiers, the loss of defensive functionality. Additionally, it will result in not just a shortage but a complete lack of human resources. This summer we watched Russian troops already unpacking their reserves from the main line to defend in the supply lane. Now to hold the main line, they are pulling resources from the east, the Luhansk region, Crimea, and Kherson. But breaking tactics do not solve the global problems of the enemy, but only aggravate them. So, who are the 200, 300 and 400? The term Cargo 200 appeared at the time of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So in some post-Soviet countries denote those who died in combat, or died of wounds during the war. Today, the code Cargo 300 is commonly used to designate wounded in places of military operations. The code Cargo 400 refers to wounded men who were concussed in battle. Allocation of concussed wounded in a separate group is due to the severity of the injury. In combat conditions, contusion is most often caused by a blast air wave, which changes the thermodynamic conditions of the environment, temperature, density, pressure. Contusion can affect both separate parts of the body and the whole body. However, I have often come across cases when Russian soldiers with serious contusions were sent back to the front line a week, or even just a few days after being wounded. That's all for now. Thank you for staying with me.